So it'll be fine. You can even minimize that and it'll be recording this. Whatever you've got on the screen is what it'll be recording. All right, CSS, yay. Very excited.
All right, good morning, everyone. So we'll be looking at CSS, that is cascading style sheets today. So we all know that the building blocks of a web page or a website is the HTML elements. But in order to beautify your web page and add some color and styling to it, we need to learn and master CSS. So what are we going to learn in today's session? It's some basic intro to CSS, selectors, cascading, specificity, pseudo classes, and some developer tools. Okay, now what do we need to keep in mind when we are styling the web pages? There are three kinds of styling. One is inline, one is embedded, and one is the external or the linked. So what we'll do is we'll go over to a new HTML file, just like how we did it on the first day. We had our own code along HTML file. So we'll have another HTML file and start putting in code and start using CSS to understand CSS better. So here, if you see on this slide, we have the three kinds of styling. One is the external. Here you will have to have the link tag in the head of your HTML file. You need to have this line of code in your HTML file, and you'll have to write the name of the CSS file that you will have all your styling in. So this is your external, wherein your HTML file is actually talking to an external file or a .css file. So all your styling, all the different information about the different font size, the font type, the color, and all the other related information will be in the style.css, and we will be referring to style.css from within the HTML file. The second one is embedded. We again have this style tag, open, close, style tag, and the styling information within that tag. So that is embedded inside the .html file and inside the head tag. That is the second kind of styling. And the third kind of styling is inline, wherein you will write all the information, the color, the font size, and other whatever you want to put in, you will be putting it within that tag itself. Like here, if you see, if you want your heading to have a particular color and a certain font size, you will have to write that information within that tag. So this is inline. And before we go over to our actual file, HTML and CSS file, where we will be putting in our code, you can actually have a look at this, because this will give you all the possible color codes that you can use for your background, for your font color, for your text color, and so on. So, sorry? Yeah, so this is one of them. This will possibly give you a nice, beautiful, the layout is very nice, and you can have lots of options in front of you, and it's easier to choose the colors. Alright, so what we can do is, just like how we had the other day, you can have a Is it clear now? Do you want me to increase the resolution a little more? All the way to the back of the house. Okay, so you can have your the doc type, the HTML, and the head tag ready, and then we can start putting in code. So do you want a couple of minutes to do it? Everyone, do you want a couple of minutes?
So you can make yourself another directory if you want to for the work that we do today. So you can push it up to a repo if you want to when you're done.
Yeah. So in my case, I just have one HTML folder, and inside that I'm making all my HTML files, and then there is a style.css. For now, we'll just have another new HTML file called HTML with CSS. You can call it whatever you want. So, and have this bit ready. You can also have a body, an empty body tag, and I mean, anyways, as soon as you open a tag, you will get the closing tag for it as it is.
If you start typing HTML, do you guys have the extension? If you just type in HTML, does it give you the whole?
For me, it's doc. Start typing doc type.
Okay. See, on mine, I must have a different one because when I start typing HTML, it's like pre-populate HTML or something like that, and it gives me like the whole.
If you type in HTML, it gives you. You can go down in the list and there's HTML:5. And if you hit enter on that, it
gives you the whole template.
The whole
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
So from VS Code, if you have an HTML file and you start typing HTML, so if you do that :5,
yeah, it's just
but it does. Okay, that's nice, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Did it work for you? So for me, it works.
Is everyone ready? All right, guys. What we'll do is there's quite a bit on my HTML file. I reckon you just ignore the others and just focus on what I highlight so that it avoids a lot of confusion. So for now, we'll just focus on that much to get us started. Meanwhile, I'll just yeah, so what I've just sent on Slack, I just reckon all of you have that one line in your body tag, open body, close body, and within that have that heading. So I'll just run this just to make sure that I have. Okay, let me just change the color. Sorry, this is not. Yeah.
There you go.
So sorry for that bad choice of color, but yeah. So you have your page, you have your title, and then you have the first line of code. Okay, now what do we mean by inline? So now we are actually looking at inline style of CSS. So inline would mean that we will put all the properties that we require, all the properties that we're looking at. For now, in this heading tag, we have style equal to color and font size. So now I'll just increase this font size to 100, and you can see that the font size has increased, or I can just make it as small as 20 and see the font size has decreased. So just keep it at 50. And RGB, so I think we all are familiar with the three basic colors, the red, blue and green. So this is one style of specifying the color. You have the style attribute, and you have the value. The value for style is given in double quotes, RGB, and the value for red, green and blue, and then the font size. So this is how we specify inline CSS. We have the attribute and we have the value. Now if you want to play around with this, there are a couple of things that we have to look at. So instead of writing this RGB and giving the values in the bracket, you can also write it this way: color blue. Do you want me to sort of send it in Slack, each one of this, or are you happy to just write it down yourself? Okay, okay. If there is something which is complicated, then I'll post it on Slack. Otherwise, we'll just type along. And hang on, just this is again another way of writing. So what I'll do is I'll just give you a couple of minutes. You can write down this, try it, run it, and see the web page and see how things appear. And then we'll quickly go over to that link which has all the color codes in it. So there you go. So you have, it's the same thing, but there are three different ways of writing. One is giving the red, green, blue combination. One is giving the actual hex value, and one is writing down the name of the color.
There's also CMYK if you want to use that. So Jai was just asking about CMYK. There's a way to specify that too with percentages. But I don't ever see CMYK though in HTML.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't mean
very
they're not
rare.
there. The most common thing that I see is hex.
Hex, yeah. Okay.
Here, I'll find it for you.
Guys, are we all good to go ahead? Yes? All good? Is someone still trying to experiment with the color thing? Okay. Okay, do you want the content left on the board, or shall I switch to that color code website? Yeah, because that's exciting. I really liked it. Okay, one more thing. If you just hover on this thing, the bracket which contains the actual value of the R, G and B. So if you can see here, 00255 gives you blue, 2550 gives you red, and 02550 gives you green. So that's just the strength of maximum green strength would be 255 for G. Maximum strength of 255 would be for red, and maximum strength of 255 would be for blue if you just change the values within the brackets. And if you want to change these, you can just if you see this, we start with 255 0 and 0. As we drag this down, the value of green changes, the value of red is decreasing but green is increasing again. Now if you see, as we go further, red has become completely 0, but green is still 255, green is still 255, and slowly the value of blue is increasing. So as we go here, the minute blue touches 255, the value of green starts going down. Alright? So this is just if you want to play around with the colors, because I think the first thing that comes to our mind when we talk about CSS is colors, how much we can play around with colors. So yeah.
If we wanted to edit the color of the actual background of the page, where would we put it's in?
The background of the page itself, you can put it in the body.
Yeah, body style.
In the body tag, you can put a style there, put background color.
Background color. So we'll look at the CSS file. Yeah, I just changed the number. If you want it to be blue again, just make it 0. Yeah, so there's something called as background color. We'll look at it when we have a look at the style.css. We'll come back to the style.css file. So now this is a color picker. If you want, okay, so if you see this, here you have the actual hex value. You have the actual hex value for the different colors. So if you don't want to worry too much about the RGB number combinations, then you can pick whichever color you want, and you can just write the corresponding hex value, the hex code. You can just copy it from here and you can just copy the code from here and then put it into your CSS file or HTML file or whatever. So this is the first kind of styling, which is the inline styling.
And those numbers do correlate, by the way. Those hex numbers and RGB values are correlated with each other. And we'll talk about that when we talk about discrete math and number systems. It's just representing it in hex versus representing it in decimal.
All right. Now, the next method of styling is using the style tag. Remember, within the head. So now style tag is used for embedded CSS in the head tag of HTML. You have the style open and close style, and then you have H1, which is called as a selector, and then you have the color specification and font size. I'm just focusing on color and font size just to keep it simple and convey the meaning. You can play around with other, I think I'll give you another link which has all the CSS properties. You can look at the different properties in that link and then put in as many properties as you want within the style block or within a selector. So here, right.
Everybody knows that control/trick in VS Code to turn it into comments. Yeah.
Yeah. So for now, I've just commented out the other 2 lines, which was mainly intended to show you how you can have the same kind of color specified in 3 different types. Okay, now let me retain this. Have a look at this, the style block, or rather the style tag, and then this one. Now let me save it and go back. Okay, so even if I have mentioned purple under H1 selector, it is still blue. So can anyone take a guess as to why it's happening like that?
Because the inline is overriding the style.
Yes, so that's what my first slide was talking about. We have inline, whatever is mentioned inline always has higher priority over whatever is mentioned outside that tag. Now if I remove this one and let's see what happens. It's changed to purple, which was what was mentioned in the style tag. All right, so this is a second kind of styling. Okay, before going ahead, we'll just have a look at CSS selector, because CSS selector, once we start working with the embedded or the external kind of CSS styling, something that we need to focus on is the selector. So H1 becomes the selector. This is the property, color, font, size. These are the properties. You can have multiple properties listed under this. Color and font size, just to keep it simple, it's just 2 of them that I've chosen. Then you have the value. So you have the value for the font size and you have the value for the color. Okay, so H1 becomes the selector. So in place of H1, you could have a P, a paragraph. You could have an unordered list. You could have a list. All right. So in place of H1, it could be H2, H3, H6, whatever. So this is the format, or this is the syntax for writing your styling for a particular element, for a particular tag in your HTML file. All right. Coming back to the HTML file, now the third type of the third type is this, the link tag. The link tag refers to the embedded, the external styling. Okay, so this is the most preferred way of styling a web page, because all your styling information rests in a different file, in a .css file. So the HTML file is not sort of, it's not overloaded with information, which it really doesn't need. So when you can have a different file with all the coloring, all the styling information, there is no need to have something inline or embedded. So this is a less messier way of having CSS included for your web pages. I can just send it across to you. I have called it style.css. You don't have to call it style.css. You can call it whatever. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So there you go. You have your style.css, which is a .css file, will have all the styling and the coloring information in it. And meanwhile, guys, I just reckon that you have another small bit of paragraph included under your body.
Just put a paragraph, any random.
Anything, you can just type your, yeah, you can just type your full name, first name, last name, whatever in it. Just have a paragraph ready so that you can have some content there to play around with. Okay. So now in our current code along file, we just have added, we've just added the link tag, and then we've added an extra paragraph. So if everyone has done that, and if I'm not rushing with the content, so allow me to just have the style.css file open. Okay, now this is a CSS block and it's called as a rule. So you have so many rules. All that you put in your CSS file are your rules. So we just discussed about the selector and the property value pair. The selector. Yeah. Okay. I'll scroll down to show you further, but this is a selector, these are the properties, and these are the values for the property. Again, at this point in time, I'd like to highlight one more important priority information, and that is, we say H1 color red. This is red or whatever. Yeah. So this is at least looking like red. But if you remember, inline we had blue, yes, and embedded we had purple. So till we have things inline and embedded, this will not be considered. So this is always the last priority, because you already have something inline, so you give high priority to that. If there is nothing inline, then you go and see if there is something under the style tag. So then, if there is nothing in the style tag, then whatever is written in your .css file will be taken up as the last priority. Alright? So you can actually experiment on that, but we'll just go ahead with the rest of the content. So you can just have, okay, I'll uncomment this. I don't know why I commented it out. So I have two selectors. One is for the heading, one is for the paragraph. I'll just change this color, guys, because this is... Yeah, okay, so these are the comments, guys. These are the comments in CSS. So if you see this, /*/, so
I'm guessing // will also work with this. If you put //
that's
in front of the
JavaScript.
line, I know, but just this / makes me think. Just in front of the H1, or there? No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, so /*. Okay, so we now have two selectors, and okay, we have H1 and we have P, and now let's go to the So here we have welcome to the world of CSS, and then if this is, hang on. Okay, the background color is black for the paragraph. And if you just go down, I have another P which has the color and the font family. So that's blue, violet, and Helvetica. So that's how it has come up here. So you have a combination of all of that. So wherever there is a paragraph from now on, you will have the background color as black and the text color and the text font as whatever you've mentioned.
Another thing, I'm not sure if you mentioned it yet, Varsha, is if you have two different selector, the same selector twice in your CSS, the last one wins. If they both define a property for that selector, the last one is the one that wins.
Yeah, we can actually work on that. Well, that comes under cascading specificity.
Yeah.
So yeah. We can do it right away.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to
Is it fine?
explain
Okay.
in case
The last one.
The last one you have mentioned here. So, for example, here, so we've got three different paragraph selectors that are all setting background color attribute.
If we have a look, yeah, in our CSS file, .css file, we have black, green, and red. So the lowest in the order has the highest priority. So the background color has become red now. And if we don't have red, then it'll be green probably. We'll have green. All right, so now we're confident with the three kinds of styling: the inline, embedded, and the external. Okay, now we'll go over to ID attribute that we use for styling. So if you have to target multiple HTML elements at once, then you can use something called as ID, but it is unique for a certain HTML page. So you cannot make use of ID across different HTML pages in a website. So the ID attribute, will again have a certain value, and this is the syntax or the format. How you write, you have a hash and then you have the name of that ID, you have the attribute and the value inside curly flower braces. So if you go to now, this is the CSS file again. You have the ID attribute and its value. So there's something called as ID for, okay, I have got two IDs, ID for unordered list and ID for list. So you can just make a note of this if you want to, or you can have your own. You can have your own color combinations or whatever. Okay, I again reckon that you all have a this is class. All right. So what you can do is you can just ignore all the content that goes inside. All right. Just have a open UL, open an ordered list and close an ordered list. Have ID equal to ID for unordered list, and you can have some content in between that. I've just transferred the content from that file to this file so that it will be easy to go further. But you can just have unordered list ID equal to ID for UL and close the unordered list, and you can have something in between the two tags to see how it appears. So
We haven't gone out.
sorry.
We haven't got it.
Okay, so ID for unordered list, the color is whatever this color, which is sort of greenish, some lemon green or whatever. And if you can see that this has become green, I'm not sure if everybody can see.
You know what my favorite styling is for list items? To not show the bullets.
Sorry?
To not show the bullet. That's my favorite styling for list items. You just use it to make like lists of things, you know, so it does like the indentation and stuff. But I don't want to see the bullets. That's usually when I style list items. That's usually what I put in there. It's something like list style, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is the property.
Okay, so next there is ID for list as well. So a list as such, there was a list under an unordered list, so there was no styling for that because I had not mentioned the name of this ID for list, so there was no mention of this. So if I say here okay, so this takes priority over the other. So if you see here, so this is some color called burly wood. So ID for list takes up this color because I've included that in line for the list. The
No,
HTML file.
your guideline.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll just take this on a different. Sorry?
Mine's coloring the focal things.
Probably you have a background for that?
No.
You don't have a background for that?
Yes.
I don't know.
Do you have a paragraph right inside that? No. Can you embed a paragraph? Yeah.
Yeah.
Spelling and from that.
Yeah.
Here. Okay. That's save it. And can you see now? I think everything will be colored with the background.
How did you? I've been here.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. So this is.
Can you see now? So probably what has happened is, since we have given this inline, has taken that as a priority. So under ID for list and ID for unwanted list, has a property called background color, which is the same as the color for
You
background.
like that?
It's the whole thing.
Okay, I was going to say snapshot and then I was going to say caption. So I said caption, but like just a snapshot. You scroll down.
So there's a difference between
Yeah, I'm
color
not sure. I think that requires a triangle. I
probably.
think you should. Like if they're on pictures of you on your website.
Yeah. But then you can do
Maybe if I put it.
Look at
They shouldn't, you don't want them to go. No, it's great. You don't want them to.
All right, now we'll move over to the class attribute. We also have a class attribute again for the purpose of styling. But class is something that stays across different HTML pages and different HTML elements. So this is the format in which we define the classes. So we will have a dot class name and the content, whatever you want to include. Again, dot class name, whatever content you want to include. So if your style dot CSS has multiple classes, you can keep making use of the classes across different HTML elements and across different HTML pages. So again, we'll go back to this one. Okay, now I'll just put this in here. Again, I'll just remove this, guys, because it avoids a lot of confusion.
So you should use IDs for things that you want to uniquely identify, and classes for things that you want to, you have multiple elements that you want to style the same way. But if you have an element, generally the way you use IDs is you've got some general styling that you're doing with classes or with elements, and you want to add some specific styling to a particular element, that's where you would use an ID.
Yeah.
Because ID is unique
IDs need to
for a HTML page.
Yes.
And that's what Bash didn't decide.
All right, now I
You can
have,
have multiple if you call them different names.
Yes.
yeah, the name is unique, but you can have multiple IDs with different names.
That's right.
Okay, so I just have 3 list items here under unordered list, and I have paragraphs embedded inside the list. So I leave it to you. You can just have one word and not type an entire sentence. So I reckon you have this format just to understand how classes work. Once we are done with the content or with the explanation, you can again go back to experimenting with the content. Now,
so define 2 list items that have class definitions. So you can use the same class definition for, so she has my class styles 1, is specified for both of those LIs. And then the second LI has an additional my class styles 2. So you can put as many class names as you want in that class.
Within the double quotes, you're passing the names of the classes, the class name or the class names in double quotes
to this class attribute. So just like how we had the ID attribute up there, ID attribute and the name of the ID attribute and the value for the ID. So I think this is, sorry, so instead of class it should be ID. Sorry. Have class equal to my class styles 1. Again, I leave it to you. You can call it whatever you want. Class, my class styles 1 and my class styles 2. So you have 2 class names being passed and you have just one being passed here. So once you have this ready, we'll go over to the .css file and we'll see what needs to be added there. All good? Can we move on? Can we move over to the CSS file? Just keep it very simple. I mean, I had time. I just put down a few sentences there, but you can just have 1 or 2 words written there. Just for your clarity, just to tell yourself that this is a paragraph, this is a list, and this is an unordered list. So now in the style.css, again, guys, just forget whatever is after that. Just focus on this one thing. So the format is dot class name open close brackets and whatever you want to put inside that. You can just write 2 classes, 3 classes, 10 classes, how many ever you want to. Just focus on how the syntax for defining a class is so that you can use it later. So you have 2 and 1, and then you have background color specified in one of the classes, and you just have color specified in another class. So I think by now we all know that color refers to the color of the text, but specifically background color refers to the color of the background, whatever goes behind the text. So I'll just check if it's fine. Yeah, so if you see here, the second one which says all about classes, it is referring to 2 classes, my classes 1 and my classes 2. My classes 2 has information regarding the background color, which is purplish, whatever. And my classes 1 has information about the color of the text. So your list has come up as a combination of the properties of both the classes. Whereas the first list
the first list has just come up with one of the properties, that is just the font color, the text color, and the list before that has an ID. It does not refer to a class, so it has taken up the color. If you, I'm not sure if the color difference is visible. So you have this and this as two different colors. This is taking up the color as specified by the ID attribute, and this is taking the color as specified by the class attribute. Whereas paragraph is, what color is this? Yeah. Background color for paragraph and text color. So the paragraph color is blue violet because the last P tag has information of the color and the font family. So that's how it has taken up blue violet. This is blue violet color. So in my CSS file, I have totally 4 paragraph tags, and it has taken up the font family and the text color mentioned in the last paragraph tag. Blue violet. Is it fine? Is it too fast? Too slow? Confusing? Not confusing? All right. So that was about the classes. Okay, if you want to refer to selectors, this is again another sort of very nice link where you can go and refer to the different selectors as per your need. All right. So if you have a look at this, in general, the w3schools.com, the content under HTML and CSS and JavaScript is just amazing. It holds you by your hand and goes element by element, or in JavaScript, the different functions, or in CSS, the different attributes. It just holds you by your hand and takes you step by step. So I reckon you refer to this. You keep this page open always and just look into it whenever you are searching for that one particular thing which you are not able to find elsewhere. All right, so now we'll move on to the next. Yeah, so next is, all right, next is cascading specificity. I think we've already touched on this a few minutes back when Janelle just pointed out on the hierarchy. You have different content under the same selector, H1, 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 but you have different font color, font family. The one at the end will always have higher priority. And we already know that inline CSS styling, inline styling will have higher priority over embedded and external, and embedded will have higher priority over external. So that is the second one that we learned. Now, what we'll do is we will touch upon important. So we'll look at what important means. So for now, we'll go on to the .css file, and again, I just want you to have this small piece of information coded into your CSS file. It's called as the important tag. Let me just increase the resolution. It's called as the important tag, and just have H2 heading, color green, yellow, whatever you want to. And don't forget to have this important tag in front of your color or in front of the property that you have in your selector. So if you're ready with this, we'll go over to the HTML file. Sorry. Alright, so now I have the important tag. It has come up on the web page with the lemon green, lime green color. Alright, so we all know that the green yellow color has an important tag in front of it, and that's why it has come up. Now let's add an ID called hash color in the CSS file. So we'll have color as probably plum or whatever. I leave it to you. Just add that color. All right. So if you've added that color, you can now go back. Okay. So all this while you had ID equal to color in your heading to tag, and you also had important in front of the color attribute. All right. Now you can run this and see again. So nothing has changed for us. The reason behind this is having the important tag in front of the color property in your CSS file. Now if you just remove this, now let's see. So if you can see here, the color of the tag, the color of the content has changed because we have removed the important. So ID has taken up higher priority. ID has taken up higher priority over what was there outside. All right. So this is the order in which your browser assigns different priorities to CSS depending on what kind of selector you're using. So you have important, then you have the inline, then you have the ID, and then you have the class, and finally you have the element.
I think it's nice to think of it in these simpler terms. It's actually more, it's more complicated. There are number values assigned for each one of these things.
Yes.
And you have to add up the numbers depending on how many of them actually apply in a particular case. So for example, you might have, you know, an element and 2 class names and an ID and different things, and you've got to add up the points to see what would actually win. And
yeah, there are points for different.
It's horrible, actually. So it's best if you don't get yourself into that situation and just sort of keep these simple rules in mind, so you're not confused about why things are styled the way that they are.
Yeah. So the repo actually contains the information, but for that,
with those
adding
numbers,
things for
yeah,
that,
adding
it
the
would be
numbers.
very overwhelming.
Definitely,
So I didn't
yeah.
include it.
I get confused every time I look at it. It's really confusing.
So,
I'm just like, why would you do
yes.
that to yourself?
So you
Keep
can
it
just
simple.
keep this in mind, and whenever you're having your styling going on, you can have this priority in mind. All right, I'll just have a look if I've excluded something else, because I had a few things under this. All right, again, without wasting much time on this, there's something called as class red and ID special. So if you have a look at my CSS style CSS, I have a class called .red and I have an ID called special, right? So the class has a mention of the color for the text, and special has the font family in it. So if I just, you don't have to do this along with me. This is just for sort of further to further understand the cascading specificity. Yeah. So paragraph, it takes up whatever is there in, because for this there is nothing inline, there is no class, there's no important tag, there's no ID, there's no class, nothing inline, nothing in the HTML file, so it jumps over to the CSS file. And in CSS file, again, there is another hierarchy battle happening to see which paragraph comes up, which paragraph properties take the highest priority. So this paragraph, the one that I've highlighted, comes up as violet blue, same as what it was. But next is a red, and next is red and special. So red paragraph. So now because we have a class mentioned, we have a class name mentioned here, no ID, no inline, nothing in this. So it goes over to the style.css and takes up whatever was there for red. Class, red. Again, paragraph. Now you have a class and an ID, nothing inline, no important tag, nothing in the HTML file. So what happens is it first takes up, reads whatever is there in ID, and then red. And there you have, again, it is shown as red. Oh, sorry. Right, now we'll go to pseudo classes. A pseudo class is a special keyword which is added on a selector which signifies a state of the selected element Pseudo classes will be more useful whenever we think about links, whenever we think about the anchor tags and the links. So one example is the hover class. So whenever we are using a mouse and whenever we hover over a link, I think all of us have observed that it changes its color, or at least still we are hovering over that, it attains a certain color, and then when you move out, when you hover out of it, it again goes back to its original color. So this pseudo class is used to make the browser aware of the event, all right, and it applies that particular CSS style which is indicated by the pseudo class. So again, what we'll do is we'll work on one pseudo class, hover. At the same time, you can have a look at the different pseudo classes in that link there. So let's go back to this one. All right, so you have H2, hover. H2 is for heading 2, hover. Color is purple. So whenever you're hovering over that heading 2 alone, heading 3, 4, 5, 6, heading 1 will not have this property because our selector is H2. So you have hover. Again, I reckon you don't look at the others, just focus on one class now. Over. Alright, I won't be long. It's 12:08. Alright, at the same time, I'm just transferring my content from my other page. Alright, again, I reckon you focus on this. So I just have a H2 heading tag. I have a heading tag and I have something written there. So now the hover class will change the color of the H2 tag when we hover over it. So I'm assuming everyone has the H2 tag in the HTML file and then the selector properties in the CSS. Yes, Vic?
Yeah. You might have to click on the thing. You probably have to give the browser page focus, I think, is what the problem was. Yeah. So, and you already have an H2 tag. I think it'll work for that one too. The one where you've got an ID. So you've got.
Yep. So here I have. Oh, what's
Try clicking on that. So we had to.
No, it should hover. We'll just see what happens.
On the page itself.
We had to click on the list on the page.
This?
No.
You
Yeah.
have to,
That should
on
be
your
alright.
live demo, you have to click on it.
It should be okay. Well, I should just go back to your.
I'll just
browser.
refresh it once
Yeah, try
probably.
refreshing.
Just click on it.
Like
And
just
click
No,
on
click
the
is not
pseudo
working.
class.
Just click on the page itself. Because it looked like it wasn't working for Vic too right at first, but then.
You just click on the where you've got the list,
Mm-hmm.
pseudo class list.
You click
Click
there.
there.
No, I think I did face this problem yesterday once. Let me see.
Yeah,
Let
it
me
might have
fix
something
this.
to do with.
H2 hover. Color is
Yeah,
purple.
That should be okay.
I had to click on it on mine to focus.
You don't have something further down in your style sheet, do you? That,
So
No.
like
Have you still got the ID? You have to comment out the ID.
Mm.
The dot color I had to comment out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because of the important tag, because that should only affect font color, I would think.
It's because of the important tag.
Is it?
Yeah.
So the important tag will even override what you get with
Yes.
cover.
So that's the important has the highest priority. So what I'll do is yes. Yes. Yeah, it works now. Alright, so one thing I had the important tag for H2, heading 2. I already had that I had to remove it because that took highest priority over classes as well. Even however is a pseudo class, but it's still a class. So so now if you see, if I move my mouse on this, it changes color. If I take my mouse pointer over out of this, it doesn't change its color. It retains its original color. So now you can have the anchor tags. Alright, you can have the anchor tags here. An unvisited link, that is a link which you have not clicked on. It retains its color as blue. A visited. A is again the selector. Bear it in mind. A is the anchor tag that we have in the HTML file. And then we have link, visited, hover, active. So hover is something that we saw just now. Visited. So once you've already clicked on your link, gone to the other page and come back to the originating page, so your color of the link changes. And then there is active if it has not yet been clicked. So the link is active, so it is blue. So you can actually have the anchor tag. You can have this list in your CSS file. So that's the end of it basically. You can have the list here, and when you go to your
So if you take the ID out of that H2, because ID overrides class as well. Yeah.
So I put it in the comments.
Yeah.
I removed the important tag. Alright, so yeah. So if you have a look. So I've just added a link here. Added a link here which opens up this web page in a blank or a new screen. New web page. So green is visited. Purple is hover. It's opening here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Obviously, you have to put
hang on. I'll just close this and I'll do it again. It's already visited. Yeah. Guys, it's just last one thing. There's something called as inspect. So how many of us have already fiddled around or played around with that inspect thing? Yes? Everyone knows what it is? So you can right click on any web page and select the inspect option, and you will be able to see the source or the HTML file. Now in this case, I'll just open up this. This is a HTML. This is a file. So what I'll do is I'll just right click and I'll click on inspect. So it should open up a new Oh, it would open up a new window, but yeah. So here, if you see, you can see the elements of that HTML file. I mean, the web page, and you can actually locally on your machine or locally for yourself, you can play around with these styling or with the elements, and then try to see its result on the web page. But whatever you do will be visible only to you. It will definitely not change the original web page. But this is very helpful to understand, like if you have okay, now these are the div elements, then you have the style, you have the class, you have header h1, you have paragraph, you have h2. So you have all of this. So this is how a typical web page for the w3schools.com looks. So if this is visible, it will not only help you to understand how each element, how each tag or attribute is put inside the HTML file, it will also help you edit it. You can actually make changes to this and see the results. That will help you better understand the structuring of a HTML file, or rather the source of your web page. So that was all about CSS Basics. I hope I've covered quite a few things, but there are lots and lots more. And probably the mentor session that we have this afternoon will help us to understand CSS and dive deeper into it. Alright, so I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Varsha.